We're back with more Seattle Real Estate Radio with your hosts, Christian Nossum and Dan Keller.
Hello, and welcome back to Seattle Real Estate Radio here on KKOL 1300 AM. We are back, and like I said, we got Dusty on. We got Dusty Hoyler. He's worked in the plumbing trade for the last 19 years, and he's dedicated to quality and craftsmanship. And he is the owner of Craftsman Plumbing, and they serve the greater Seattle metro area. And he's going to talk a lot about plumbing today. So, Dusty, thank you very much for your time, for coming in today.
Fantastic.
Oh, I can do that. I can do the little, applause. Yeah. There you go.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, you're very welcome. It's, when you can find a good plumber that actually wants to educate people, you don't want to let them go. And it's actually really hard to find that because most plumbers are like, yeah, I make $90 an hour. I don't want to talk to you. Yeah. I don't know why they have a southern accent like I just did. But.
We really, as plumbers, we really have a little bit of a image problem. Mm-hmm. And so we really try to present ourselves in the most professional way possible, so we can start to dispel that image problem that's been created over the years.
Yeah, right. Us real estate agents have a little bit of an image problem as well. Exactly. Little pushy car salesman type, and that's not at all what we do. Yeah. Ours is all about education. And so I hear you.
I will say this. I was very impressed with you guys when you guys came over. I was looking for a plumber so here's background story how we met. Looking for a plumber for some clients. Their toilet had some problems after they closed the house. Reached out to several plumbers. Nobody wanted to help me out. But Dusty and Craftsman Plumbing came out, super professional, did a really good job, and yeah.
Yep, good. And that is how we got this connection, and that's why he's on the show today, because so many of the other plumbers, like you were saying, have kind of an image problem, and sometimes it's for real, and sometimes it's not, it's a good reason that they have the image problem, because they won't do a little small job here and there, like the one that we had to deal with.
Yeah.
So, why don't you kind of tell me a little bit more about Craftsman Plumbing? So what do you guys kind of specialize in?
So we really are completely across the board. We really try to focus on residential service plumbing. So, that can be anything from a drippy faucet to a shower valve that doesn't shut off all the way to a side sewer replacement, repair, or in some situations it makes sense to actually put a liner in.
Yeah.
So you're not digging through landscaping, or some of the side sewers are so deep that it's more cost effective to go with a liner. So so we do that work. We do small commercial stuff as well, like tenant improvement. I'm trying to think. Recently, what we've done a couple coffee shop ads in a small commercial setting where the folks said a new tenant came in and they needed a different setup.
Got it.
Restaurants, we've done a few restaurants, same situation. New tenant comes in, they need a different setup.
Yeah, move in the kitchen or something like that. And
gas piping, that's something we do as well.
So that's important for us because we have a lot of people that they'll have gas at the house, but it's not to the stove.
Yep.
And if they're going to do it to the stove, they also want to add a line to the backyard for a barbecue.
Yep. And
we're like, well, some plumbers do it, not all of them. And you got to know what you're doing when you're doing that because you don't want the house to blow up. So
absolutely. And there's one thing that I'll just mention. A lot of people don't know this, but you actually have to have a special gas piping certification in the city of Seattle.
That's what I thought. Yeah. Because I remember talking to a plumber about that years ago, and I believe they said something like that. And they're like, yeah, we can't do it because we don't have the certification in Seattle. I was like, oh. Yep. Are there other cities around that have that too, or is it just Seattle? Or
Seattle's the only one I know of. But it's really about protecting the consumer.
Yeah, exactly.
Making sure it's done right.
Yep, which I appreciate. Okay, so what's kind of the most common plumbing issues that you guys come across or that you commonly have to deal with?
The most common. We run into toilets that are running often, and folks won't know that that's happening until they get an outrageous phone bill.
Or water bill.
I'm sorry. Water
Their phone bill is just off the hook. It's somehow tied to their toilet. I don't know how, but they call us and we fix it.
That's right. So, and you know, it's I'll give the listeners out there a little trick, plumber trick. If you put, oftentimes you can't even tell that your toilet's running. It's just a real slow trickle, and you might not even see it. You might not even be able to hear it. So if you take some food coloring and just squirt it in the tank portion, and if any of that coloring gets into your bowl, you've got a leaking seal. So that's a good way that a homeowner or consumer can find out, can kind of narrow it down. Because we get calls where somebody has an outrageous water bill, and and they're like, you know, our toilets aren't running. We think maybe there's a leak in the main, and you know, so a little bit of self-diagnostic
can help save some money. And,
absolutely,
yeah. I think City of Seattle. I remember as a kid growing up here that the City of Seattle one time, or Seattle City Light, Seattle Public Utilities, like with the bill, they mailed out little tablets that were little dye tablets, and they had you put it in your tank for the same reason, to see if it was doing that.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
That's smart.
This was probably 20, 30 years ago that they did this, but yeah, I remember.
How do you remember that?
I don't know. I was a weird kid. I just thought it was kind of cool. I was like, oh, that's how you figure out if your toilet's running. So I knew that trick because of Seattle Public Utilities years ago. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, I'm weird though. What other tips do you have that can solve any like common issues? Do you have any other like good ones that you can share with us?
I do. So there's a situation that doesn't get talked about a lot. Everybody wants to solve their own slow drain problem, which is totally fine. However, Drano can be very aggressive on steel and cast iron pipes and copper pipes too. There's a pretty good sized amount of homes in Seattle that were built between, I'm going to say, like the mid 60s up until about the end of the 60s, 70, somewhere in there, when ABS plastic drain pipe became more prevalent. And there are a lot of copper drain lines. And Drano will actually eat, it settles in the bottom of the pipe, and it will eat a line. It looks like a laser shot down the bottom of the pipe. So what happens is people have issues with slow drains, and they don't realize that they have copper, steel, or cast iron pipe. And because it's so aggressive, it will eat through the pipe, and folks go from having a pretty small issue to having a major issue.
Yeah.
They have to open walls and replace piping. So be careful with Drano.
Yeah, I've heard that before as well.
If you have plastic piping, it's not a concern because it won't eat through the plastic. But metal,
it's weird because I would think that Drano would eat through plastic before it would metal, but that's good to know. I've I heard once that some of the really thick, soft toilet papers are very common or commonly plug up the toilets. So like Charmin, and I've heard a plumber once years and years ago called me and said, yeah, you know, Charmin, the really soft, thick Charmin, we get calls all the time from needing to unplug the line, and they called it a Charmin house. They don't tell them to stop using the Charmin because they get to go out there all the time. But it's just their toilet paper, and that's why they keep getting all these plugs in their sewer line.
I'm learning a lot today.
I know. So I don't know if that's a real thing or not, but it sounds...
Yeah, I haven't actually run into a particular kind of toilet paper. I will say that we have responded to mainline backups that were caused by towelettes.
Oh yeah,
so they're non.
They say they're flushable,
right?
But they're not actually flushable.
Not.
No.
And we pull those back on the snake
a lot.
So be careful about those. They just really shouldn't be flushed down the toilet.
No, and I don't know how they can actually say that they're flushable because, I mean, I think again, Seattle Public Utilities had a video that they had out that they just released a couple months ago, and they were showing how if you have toilet paper and water and they like swish it around and it disintegrates, and that's how it should do it.
Yep.
And those flushable wipes, they don't disintegrate. They just stay like a flushable wipe.
Yep.
It's like, yeah, that doesn't
Indefinitely.
work.
No.
And
it's not a
they
good
just cause
situation.
a lot of money for the homeowner and the city as well.
And the utility. Yep. Absolutely.
So, yeah, no fun. No fun. All right. Any prevention tips that you got?
Prevention tips. It's good to flush out your water heater once a year.
This is a really good one, too.
And that's something that's, it's just so simple and straightforward that any homeowner can do it. You hook up your garden hose to it, put it out in the yard or down the driveway, give it a good flush for 10 minutes. That takes, the rust that's developed in the bottom of the tank.
All the sediment,
The mineral deposits, and flushes it out. And that will extend the life of your tank.
So you do it once a year.
Once a year.
Takes, how long does it take to refill a tank and then get it back up to heat?
So you don't, so to get it back up to heat, depending on if it's gas or electric, probably 30 to 40 minutes.
Oh, that's not bad.
Not bad at all. And you don't actually turn the tank, close the valve. You want that flow to push that sediment through. So you leave the valve on, and you just open up that drain at the bottom
With your hose attached.
with your hose
You
attached.
don't want to burn your feet off.
You don't want to flood your garage.
Yeah.
Or your home.
Yeah, or your home.
And flush that water out into the outdoors, and it takes the sediment with it.
That's awesome. That's a good one. I've heard that once before, too.
So simple.
I think that's something that Jeff, the inspector that we use quite a bit, he talks about that, too, how, you should do this once every year or two. And it really does. It's not hard. I've done it before.
Yeah.
I just got to remember to do it every year. So, let's see. So I know that plumbers are certified through the state.
Yep.
Are there actually plumbers that don't get certified, and why is it so important to get certified? And tell me that in a minute or less before we have to go to break.
Well, let's see. The easiest way to describe it is if you were, getting the services of an attorney, you would want to make sure you had an attorney that had passed a bar exam.
Yes, you
and
would.
was certified to do business, conduct their business. So it's the same thing with plumbing. There are a number of handymen out there and organizations. They're not supposed to do plumbing work, but occasionally they will. We come across that from time to time. There's kind of two things. One is they're not licensed and bonded to do the work, so the consumer's not protected. And just as if you have an attorney, you want to make sure that you have a professional that has the experience and can provide the quality work.
Awesome. Well, we got to take a quick break. We're going to come right back with more from Dusty at Craftsman Plumbing.
Stay tuned. There's more Seattle Real Estate Radio coming up here on Business Radio 1300 KKOL. We're back with more Seattle Real Estate Radio with your hosts, Christian Nossum and Dan Keller.
Hello, and welcome back to Seattle Real Estate Radio here on KKOL 1300 AM. We are back with Dusty Hoyler from Craftsman Plumbing. Did I say your name right?
You sure did.
I said it really quick, and I was like, man, did I say that right? Because I think I did, but I'm not sure. Yeah, that is a hard one. It's a unique name. I like it. So over the break, Les was telling me all about how he wants to talk about some improvements and updates that homeowners can do, and also a big issue that we see with a lot of Seattle area townhomes. So, Les, I'm going to let you kind of take off from here.
Well. I have a ton of questions.
I know.
So
hopefully we can get through them.
Right. So before we get into all my, handyman questions, how did you get into the industry?
That's a great question. My dad was a plumber.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So I kind of was born into it. Two of my uncles are also plumbers, and I actually have two cousins that are plumbers. So when I was a young man, I started working for my dad in the shop on the weekends building prefab, and this is a kind of a funny story. He paid me $1 an hour, and I would work like 10-hour days on Sunday or Saturday. Usually not both, but one day. And I thought I was filthy rich. I got $10. So that's how I got into it.
You've kind of been doing it forever then.
For a good chunk
So
of time.
you're what, 25 years old, because you've been doing it for 19 years, and you started
go
when
with
you were
that.
5.
So when did you branch off? How did you start your own company?
I started my company just over 3 years ago.
Okay.
And, essentially during the downturn, I worked in the commercial building sector since I've lived in Seattle. And during the downturn, there was just no building going on.
Right.
And I was working about 4 months out of the year.
Mm.
And I came to the realization that there are a lot of folks out there that need a good plumber.
Mm-hmm.
And there's plenty of plumbing to be done. And I decided to hang a shingle out and go out there and provide absolutely the best services that I can.
Yeah,
And
nice.
we've been doing that for 3 years. So
Nice.
it's really exciting.
And I will say you have pretty dang good Yelp and Facebook and all the other review sites out there. How's all that stuff? You have good reviews. That means that you're doing something right, and
Right.
people aren't pissed off at you. So good job.
Thank you.
All right, so let me get into my questions. So a thing that we run into a lot, I mean, older homes, Craftsman's home, they have the galvanized steel.
Yep.
So what do homeowners or new homeowners need to know about galvanized steel, and what's your opinion on it?
Well, it's essentially a ticking time bomb.
Mm-hmm.
There's two things that are going to happen, and either one of these two things happening is going to force you to deal with it. Number one, if you can think about it as in the inside is slowly rusting shut.
Mm-hmm.
So eventually, and it usually happens on the hot side first because the hot side oxidation is enhanced by the hot water, by the temperature. So essentially, at some point, you're going to have a lack of flow. That's one issue.
Mm-hmm.
The other issue is that eventually it's going to rust through and spring a leak,
Mm-hmm.
and you're going to have leaking water in your home. So, a lot of folks will realize that that's an issue. It's on the horizon, and they'll decide to have a total repipe done.
Yeah.
And you can either repipe in PEX or copper. The copper is more expensive, the labor is a little bit more, and the materials more.
Mm-hmm.
But some folks want that product, and that's what I have in my home.
Mm-hmm.
I repiped my home with copper. But PEX is a good product as well. So essentially, either one of those things can be, one is going to be very frustrating because you're not going to have pressure or flow in your shower, or your
Yeah.
kitchen sink, or wherever, your toilet. And then the second issue is just, it can create catastrophic damage. So,
Mm-hmm. So the good way to tell this, and this is what we kind of tell people when we're showing houses, we'll go down in the basement, and if there's exposed ceilings and you
Yep.
can see the pipes running through, you can tell what kind of pipes they are. If they're galvanized steel, they're kind of the silvery looking pipe. They're not black, that's gas.
Yep.
And they're not copper, because that's clearly copper. And if you start to see the little pinhole leaks, that's a great sign that it's time to replace it. And then if you turn on the water, turn on the sink, flush the toilet, and have the bathtub or the shower running at the same time, and see when you flush the toilet if the water level goes way down. That's the good tip on how to figure out if it's time to redo it.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that's
Wow.
what we do with our clients.
So how much does a repipe generally cost?
It varies depending on, how many bathrooms are in the house, how many fixtures, the layout of the house.
Mm-hmm.
Homes that are slab on grade can be pretty difficult
Yeah.
because we have to open up a lot of walls and ceilings to get that pipe run. The most straightforward homes to repipe are the bungalows with unfinished basement. So
Mhm.
most of that piping is exposed in
Exposed.
the basement.
Yeah.
So, and whenever we do a repipe, we try to get that piping up into the joist space so that down the road, as Seattle continues to grow, space is becoming more and more valuable.
Mhm.
And it's really great to be able to finish out those unfinished basements and
Yeah.
provide that extra space, or mother-in-law.
Yep. So you don't want them to go below the beams.
Yep.
Because then you're losing some ceiling height,
You're
which is
losing it.
very valuable in the
Indeed.
basement. Yeah.
So it could be anywhere from 8,000 to 20,000. It just depends.
Woo!
Yeah, exactly.
That is a pretty penny.
Yeah,
That's a lot.
That's why when we're showing homes, Les, we got to make sure that our clients are informed on, hey, this is galvanized steel.
Yeah.
What does that mean? Well,
Right.
it means that you might have a big chunk of money coming out of your pocket in the
Yeah.
next few years.
Yeah, well, yesterday, seen quite a few
Mhm.
Craftsman older homes in Seattle, and every single one of them had galvanized steel. And
Mhm.
they were like, well, how much does that cost? And I'm like, oh, well, talking to a plumber tomorrow. I'll let you know.
I'll let you know.
So yeah. So that's crazy. So we do a lot of townhomes. What's the difference between a closed hydronic system and a open system?
Great question.
All right.
So
You got a lot of great questions, Les. It's like you're smart or something.
Yeah, just a little.
All right, so I know this is a big deal because we do
this is a
sell
big
a lot
deal.
of townhomes. So let's
we are-
educate.
we are seeing a lot of townhomes being built with an open hydronic system.
Mhm.
So what that means is there's not a barrier between your heating loop and your domestic hot water. So let's say in the summertime, you leave your heat off for 4 or 5 months.
Mhm.
That hot water that's out there, the water that's out there in those heating loops
Mhm.
is going to be stagnant. And then the first day you flip your heat on, and this is if you have in-floor hydronic heat.
Yeah, or even in wall where there's just a
In-wall
fan
with
that's
the fan.
pushing out the heat.
Yep, exactly. Or radiators.
Mm-hmm.
When you flip that switch on, that pump turns on, and it
Yeah.
pushes all of that stagnant water that's been sitting there for
Yeah.
6-8 months or 4 months, however long, and
Let's
pushes it.
be honest. Seattle summer is like a month and a half. So
That's true. but here's the deal. I don't want to drink my heating water.
no.
And that's the problem. I really would like to see some legislation be passed to outlaw these systems.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the townhome builders, they can save $6 to $8 grand by doing this and kind of taking a shortcut. And the consumers are the ones that really get hurt because they don't oftentimes understand that this is an issue until they've already purchased a home.
So what do you want to look for? Do you want to see an open or a closed?
You want to see a closed system.
Okay.
So you want a double metal barrier
Mhm.
between the heating system and the domestic hot water system.
Okay.
And so that can be achieved in a number of ways. There are some combination boilers that have heat exchanger inside the boiler.
Mhm.
There are boilers that just serve the hot hydronic side.
Mhm.
And there are some tanks that actually have a coil in the middle, and that's how that essentially you're transferring heat from one loop to the other loop
Mhm.
through a heat transfer system. And so you want those systems to be independent of each other and not mixing the water together.
Got it. So how can you tell what kind of system you have if you already own a townhouse, or maybe when we're out showing townhomes?
It can be kind of tricky. If you see oftentimes the heating water will be set to like 140.
Mm-hmm.
Now domestic water, it's not, you're not supposed to have
120.
it
Yeah.
above 120. So you'll see a mixing valve that controls the temperature of the domestic water leaving your kind of mechanical area.
Mm-hmm.
That can be a really good telltale sign because your domestic hot water wouldn't be set that high if it was a separated system. But honestly, it can be tricky. I think the ones that are really hard to identify are the water heaters, the tanks that have the coil inside, because you essentially see these heating ports coming off.
Mm-hmm.
Those ports should be identified on the tank as heating outlet and inlet. But honestly, I think the best thing to do is to have a professional come out and have a look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And if anybody gives us a call, we'll come out and do a inspection free of charge. So
Whoa!
Nice.
Did I just hear a Seattle Real Estate Radio exclusive offer?
Yeah.
Exclusive.
Wait, hold on. I got to do my radio. Exclusive. There we go.
So that's awesome. So if you do own a townhome or you're going to buy a townhome, you really should know if you're getting an open or a closed system. And if you have any question at all, definitely give Dusty and his team a call at Craftsman Plumbing. I'll give you the number right now. 206-855-6100.
That's it.
That's it.
All right.
855-6100.
6100.
Actually, let me-
6110.
610-1100. 11. I can talk. Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah, it's not 6100. It's 6110. Yep.
Oh, okay. 6110. So 206-855-6110. So Craftsman Plumbing specializes in plumbing problems, diagnosis and checkup, tankless and gas water heater installation and repair. repiping, installation, and upgrades, common repairs, which we have had help from them by, leaks, sewer backup, and more. If you're looking for a good, reputable, and honest plumber, give Dusty and his team at Craftsman Plumbing a call, 206-855-6110, 206-855-6110, or visit them on the web at craftsman-plumbing.com. That's craftsman-plumbing.com. You can definitely check out all their reviews on Yelp, Houzz, Facebook. They are all over the place. They are very honest. I highly recommend them. They have helped us out of some issues in the past. And yeah, thank you, Dusty.
I have a quick question.
Go for it.
Difference between tankless and hot water tank heater.
Tankless, yeah. So
You gave him like 3 seconds to answer.
so
I wanted to get it in.
Obviously, a tank is
It's a big tank.
Big tank,
Right.
And tankless is generally fueled by gas.
Okay.
So you need to make
Well, that's
sure
all the time we got. I'm sorry, Dusty.
next time.
We'll explain after the break.
Stay tuned. There's more Seattle Real Estate Radio coming up here on Business Radio 1300 KKOL.